First and foremost, I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join me here today for this month's Accelerate Series webinar, which is going to be on target map enhancements. Now, today's webinar might be a little bit shorter than ones that we've hosted in the past, probably go for about 35 minutes, ample time at the end for some questions. Because again, the purpose of today is to share with you the enhancements that we've made to target maps. If you're somebody who says, well, you know what, I just need some general target map training. Well, lucky for you, we've got lots of resources available. I will be posting some links in the chat that y'all can take a look at. The key thing to remember is just knowing that if you are looking to learn with how target maps just work in general, then I'm just going to ask that you be sure to sign up and attend our weekly trainings that we do offer twice a week. I just posted them in the chat for everybody, so everybody should be able to access those as well. Now, a big question that will come up is this being recorded? And the answer is yes. When can you expect this recording? I'll try to get it out to everybody by end of day today, so probably in an hour or two after our session concludes. I often just have to wait for the recordings to render, and once that takes place, so they can get it sent off to the group. I try to be very quick about it. Now, for those of you that are joining me for the very first time today, welcome. My name is LiaJean McHenry. I'm our Senior Training Manager over here at AssetMap. I host this Accelerate Series webinar. I host it once a month. Okay, so usually every third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m., I'll host an Accelerate Series webinar, with the exception of some months. Sometimes we'll move it to the fourth Thursday if there's 5 Thursdays in the month, or if we have a holiday or something like that. But we try to stay consistent every third Thursday at 3. Topics will vary. If you are interested after today's training and want to know where you can find past sessions, well, don't worry. I record all of them and they will be accessible for you, and you can actually find them in application. If you have questions throughout today's training, please feel free to use the chat. Nobody else will see your questions except for me, so feel free to ask away. If it's applicable to the group, we'll get it answered. If it's a little bit one-off or a little bit case-specific, it's probably best that we save that for post-training, and you're welcome to reach out to our support team and we can get that sorted for you. Again, the purpose of today's training is to really talk about target map enhancements. I will give a brief overview of the power of target maps, a little bit of a refresher for the group, also just kind of level set for everybody attending. Then I'm going to show you our updated target map summary page, and I'm going to show you one of our newest enhancements and or semi features called target map comparisons. All throughout today's session, I'll point you to where you can find additional support and resources, even continuing on after today's session. And of course, if you have questions, please use the chat feature to access those. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Where we're going to begin today is I'm going to hop into the application. As you can see, I have logged into AssetMap and I'm already in a household. Okay, so again, if you're joining us for today's session, my hope is that you know how to add households, you know how to add their data, you know how to get here, right? Building their map of where they are today. Once we know where folks are today, that's really where we can leverage analysis tools like signals. Does it appear that you're on track, potentially, if these unexpected life events take place? Maybe yes, maybe no. Runs off of a color gradation system, okay? Green indicates it appears that you may be able to come up with funding to fund something like this if it was to happen. Green does not mean 100% success, okay? This is not Monte Carlo. This does run off of a color gradation, so green indicates it appears that you're looking good. Yellow indicates not looking so good, and red indicates not looking good at all. What fuels signals is going to be the asset map itself with the primary client and or spouse and partner. We're looking at their ages, we're looking at their incomes, we're looking at their assets, and we have a predictive model built into the back end, and it just spits out, does it appear that they're on track? Now, we don't share the predictive model with you, and that's by design. And the reason for it is that signals are not a perfect solve. They are to help invite you to explore these opportunities and go run the actual analysis. Think of this as a helpful aid to you. You can hop into signals very quickly, see if there's areas that stick out of potential immediate concern. Where you go run the actual math is going to be target maps. Okay. For those of you that have been on the platform for a while, you'll notice that when you click into target maps and you have several created, our target map summary page is now been updated. Okay, so one of the enhancements that we made is we actually removed the color coordination of the funding bar specific to the type of target map that it was. So see this green dot? The green means it's a retirement target map. So these green dots mean that these are retirement funding target maps. Okay. This blue dot means that it's a loss of life target map. If you're wondering, well, how do I remember that? Well, when you go to add a new target map, we have them all listed here. And we also have the key for you on the upper right-hand side at any time. Okay. So the only difference of what we've done is that the funding color bar here used to align with the type of target map that it was. So if this was a retirement funding target map, this would be green. Okay. This would be green here. The funding bar would be green, indicating it's a retirement target map. And this would have been green as well. So the key thing to remember, okay, is that we wanted to take that away and always show you the funding breakdown so that as we're looking at goals, as we're assessing needs, at a quick glance at any time, you'll be able to look at any of the target maps you're running and very quickly see, well, what percentage of funding is cash, which is this bright teal color? What percentage of funding of this is assets, which is going to be this green color? And if we had insurance, okay, in any of our funding sources, that would be illustrated in dark blue. Now, those funding colors align perfectly with what you see here on the asset map report. Cash flow income sources boxes are outlined in bright teal. Insurance boxes are outlined in dark blue. And then non-retirement assets are marked in green. Okay, so yes, in some cases when we're running analysis, some of the assets, okay, are going to be, obviously like retirement assets and things could be included, and we're just going to roll it up all under assets in general. Okay, so that you could take a look at it there. So the nice thing about this is that from the household summary page now, if we go here, at any time, you'll be able to look to the target map tile on the right. You'll see all the target maps listed. And what makes this really nice is that you can see what the funding breakdown is. So I can see that this is being funded through cash. These are being funded so far through insurance, these different retirement ones. But now because we removed the funding bar color being associated with the type of target map that it is, this is where naming criteria from a training perspective is going to become very important for you. Imagine that if I didn't name these so clearly, I might forget what type of target map this is, right? Because the funding bars are no longer specific to the color of the type of target map that it is. So what I really want to stress for you all for setting yourself up for success, because look, back here on this household summary view, you don't see the dots to know like what type of target map that it is. You do see it when you come here into the main target map section. You can see the dots for the type of target map. But this is where I recommend double clicking your mouse and renaming these target maps to be very clear, very concise. And that way at any time when you're looking at them or your clients are looking at them, nobody has to question, which target maps are we looking at? Okay. So our target map summary page has changed. Okay. We did add in this little funding circle, and the circle now will indicate off of some color gradation as well. This doesn't tie to signals though. This is specific to target maps. If something is 0 to 24% funded, it will be in red. Okay. If something is 25 to 49% funded, it would be in orange. And if something was 50 to 74% funded, it would be yellow. And then anything above 75 and up is going to be green. This is not Monte Carlo. This does not speak to signals. This is specific to the target maps, and the funding circle, its color goes off of quarters. Okay. So I just want you to be aware of why those are there. Okay. So don't get too caught up with like, well, why is this red versus this being orange? I mean, the math is there. Okay. I'm telling you what it is. If it's below 25%, it's going to be red. Okay. If it's above 25%, but below 50%, it's going to be orange. Okay. If it's above 50%, but below 75%, it'll be yellow. And if it's above 75%, it's going to be green. Okay. Just in case those questions come up, though, it's important that we address them because I want you to be set up for success. Okay. Now, that being said, naming criteria is important. Also, making sure that we feel comfortable with how these things are organized is important as well. We added in some additional enhancements to this page. Over on the right, you can now pin certain target maps if you want them to. If you pin a target map, it will pin it to the top. If you try to drag a target map above something that's pinned, it won't work. Okay. It'll keep whatever one is pinned up at the top. So just be aware that if you try to move one of these things up, it's not going to work. You got to get it pinned. Okay. It'll say pinned on whatever one is physically pinned. So if you need to unpin one, you just have to uncheck it to unpin, and then you could drag and move this in a proper order if you wanted to. Okay. No problem. Question coming in. I missed how to edit the name of a retirement funding. You can just double click your mouse quickly right on the name and you can change the name. Or, of course, you could just click into the target map itself, click the settings button on the upper right. That's another way to rename it if you prefer. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question that just came into the chat. Now, in addition to allowing you to pin things, we now also allow you to mark a certain target map as being a selected target. What that means is, like, for example, I have these 3 different retirement funding scenarios. Perhaps this is the target of what we're shooting for, right? Or maybe they really want to retire as early as possible. And so the target is that we want to retire at 65. If you mark this as being the target, all you're doing is you're filling it in, and it's just notating that that's the one that we're aiming for, or that's the one we're marking because of X. Okay. It's really just kind of there for note keeping. You indicate that you're marking that as the overall target. Okay. One of the things to consider is that you can only have one target map within each category. So if you have like 6 retirement funding target maps, only one of them can be marked as the target. If you have 4 different long-term care scenarios, okay, so like, for example, if I add 6 different long-term care events, I could only mark one of them as being the target. If I have 10 different retirement funding target maps, I can only mark one of them as being the target. So if you're wondering, like, why can't I select multiple? It'll tell you. Like, if I even tried to click this again for a retirement, it says, listen, you already have an active target map already exists. Okay. So this little icon looks like a bullseye target. Okay. But think of it as marking it as like the active target map as to where that is today. In addition, we added in filters. So this is something that's really exciting that I want to point out to you all. You can see here, look at how many target maps I have created. Maybe these folks are coming in later today and I really just want to isolate and clean this up and only show retirement. I could click here where it says filters, and now I can filter it to say I only want to look at the retirement target maps. If you apply that filter, look, the rest of them go away. They're not removed, they're not deleted or anything. They're just hidden from view. Okay, so what's nice is you could kind of flip. If you're trying to tell a story and you want to isolate like something one by one, like this would be a great opportunity to do that. You could just use the filter and you could say, let's talk about education. Okay, now let's also talk about retirement. Okay, great. And then we could go through it this way as well. In addition to filters by target map type, you can also filter by specific associated members, and you could also filter if it's the target and or not. Okay, so just something to consider. Now, one of the things, if you want to reset this to get it back, you just click reset. It switches it back to all, and then all of them will come back here. Okay. Just be mindful that if you do, let's say, isolate to just the retirement target maps in this filter set, watch this. If I use my menu on the left and I come into the report section, if I expand the target maps, every single target map will still be available in the reports area, regardless of what you have filtered. So just be mindful that if you have filters applied, the filters really only flow through to this specific view for presentation purposes. Okay. And if you wanted to draw the filters or minimize them down, you could click filters here, you could click filter there, and it'll bring it up and take it away if you'd like. Okay. Now, you might have noticed that when we made this update, okay, this enhancement for the target map summary page, in addition to adding in the ability for you to pin target maps, in addition to you being able to mark certain target maps as being active and or the targeted goal, or, you know, case of what we're looking to plan for, we have also removed a lot of those buttons that you used to see on the upper right of each of these target maps, which was the ability to clone or quickly produce a PDF. We actually still have them all here. They're just hidden in the ellipses, right? So we just tried to clean this up a little bit, declutter it a little bit for you, make it a little bit cleaner for presentation, so you can still delete target maps if you need to. Here's another way to click into a target map to make edits. This is another way to click settings, and that's just another way to rename target maps as well. So if you find that you can't double click this fast enough to rename it, you could just click the ellipses, click settings this way, You can also use the cloning feature, which if you're familiar with target maps, that's one of the best and most efficient ways to kind of build out your baselines, your base cases first, then use that cloning feature, create carbon copies, and then change variables and create different iterations of whatever it is that you might be trying to show. Okay. All right. I'm going to periodically look at these questions and just make sure that we're in a good place. Okay. Okay, yes. And I do see that there is some feedback coming into the chat. That's always welcomed, and I really do appreciate that. If after today's training, or even just in general in the future, if you ever feel like, you know what, I'd love to see target maps do X, or it would be nice if, you know, it looked different and looked this way, please submit that feedback, but you'll need to do it. So you can do that here in your main menu and click into the feedback section here, and you can submit that. You can submit those changes and or enhancements and or suggestions that you'd like to see. We do need that information in writing, and it is something that is like really exciting for people we do need it in writing, and it is something that does actually get looked at. And it often can be exciting for some people, because in some cases we actually do make some of the enhancements. Like if enough people are asking for it, it'll be something that we do look into very seriously. So something just to consider there. Now, another feature enhancement that we've made specific to target maps is we've implemented a newer tool called target map comparisons. What it allows you to do, it allows you to select up to 3 different target maps. So 3 as of today is the max. So you can select up to 3, and then you can click compare. Okay. If you accidentally didn't want one of these, you can exit out of it here, and then you could come in and you could select a different one if you wanted to, or just uncheck it, scroll back up. Okay. In short, you can pick up to 3, and then you could go ahead and click compare. Once you go into the comparison mode, it's going to put those 3 target maps side by side. If it's an active target map, okay, meaning that you marked it as being active and or potentially like the goal that you're aiming for, it'll be notated here. You can always uncheck that here if for any reason you wanted to uncheck it and target another one. You can also click into the member icons and see like who these are tied to, like what members these are tied to. In addition, you can click the ellipses buttons to click in and edit a target map at any time. So while in this comparison mode, you do have the ability to make changes to the expected net return on capital. You can also show a duration of contribution. So if you're familiar with kind of how target maps work, when we open up a target map, we have the opportunity to put an expected net return on capital. That's used not only as the discount rate to help us calculate present value for how much money we'd have to come up with today in order to fund this goal and or need, but it's also used as the blended rate of return tied towards anything in tab number 2. So just to provide a little context here, I'm going to click into this one and just click edit. We're going to open up the target map. And I just want to remind everyone that the sections that we saw a moment ago in that comparison mode are the 3 sections you see up here in your funding parameters: expected net return on capital, ability to add annual increase of contributions, and duration of contributions. So what do these boxes mean? Well, in every single target map, tab number 1 is what are we solving for? What's the expense? So like for retirement, we've got some default expenses, or if you override the defaults, you're putting the assumptions in. But just think tab number 1 is after tax cash flow desired. This is saying, what are we solving for? What's the expense? If you want to add in additional expenses, you can. If you wanted to update any of these expenses, you can. Okay, but that's tab number 1. Now, this $2.1 million is in today's dollars. Well, if we think about present value calculation, when we go back to when we learned that in school, you need a discount rate in order to calculate present value. So what I like to do is I like to teach this math. If I switch this to 0 and click off to the side, if this is set to 0 and you're in tab number 1, this will show you the total of what all of these expenses would cost starting today with COLAs applied from now all the way up until those ages. Okay, $14 million. Retirement is going to cost you $14 million, but that's assuming that your money does absolutely nothing for you. And the fact of the matter is tab number 2, everything from tab number 2 is fed from the asset map report. So we'll show all their cash flow sources, we'll show all their assets, we'll show all their insurance. Now in a retirement target map, the only things we automatically check on are retirement accounts, and we check on any income tied to retirement like Social Security. Don't forget that with assets, we take the assets for what they're worth today. So Neil has a 401k, has $100,000 in it, but he's 41 years old. And I'm saying he's not going to retire in this example till 67. So what about all the future contributions that he would be making for like the next 26 years? Are we not taking that into consideration? We are. As long as on the asset map report in those particular accounts, you put that they're making the contributions, you'll see that we illustrate them up above as future cash flows. So we are taking into account what the asset is worth today. We're also taking into account the future dollars that they're planning to put into that. Okay, so just some things to keep in mind. One little hidden gem while we're here is for things like Social Security and really any of these income flows, we do not default any kind of COLA. So if you're someone who's like, well, I want to have Social Security being increased by like a 1% COLA every year, for example, or I want to show the contributions being like slowly increased because like as they get, raises, they'll probably raise it up a little bit. You have to manually come into the income flows in a target map, click into them, and you have to put the COLA yourself. Okay. So please just add that in. Some of you are asking questions about these red dots. So this is just a little hidden feature we have in Asset Map. It's the emoji feature. All I do is for example, I've gotten into the method of if I'm missing a statement or something, I'll mark the boxes on the map with a red dot, for example. All I did was I clicked into the tile next to any reference name. If you right click your mouse and click emoji, you can search for an emoji. Now we're all business professionals. Okay. So we're not going to be crazy and pick emojis that we shouldn't pick, but you could type something in like this, like type in red circle, for example, and I might mark that it's because I'm waiting for a statement, for example. It's up to you. I've also seen some people put things like the little question mark. The reason they might do that is because they put intentional questions in the notes area that they don't want to forget to ask in the next annual review meeting. Be mindful. Okay. Disclaimer. I'm not a part of your compliance team. So if your compliance team, you don't think they're going to like these emojis being on the map, then maybe use them behind the scenes, like for, note keeping for yourself. But before you present something live in front of a client, perhaps take it away, or certainly make sure to take it away before you build a deliverable. Because as of today, okay, if the emojis are on these tiles, they do flow through not only to the report, but you saw in this target map, okay, that the emojis will flow through. They'll also flow through onto the client's client portal. Okay. So if you add an emoji on their map here on the advisor side, it's going to flow through and appear on the client's portal if you decide to give them access to one. So that's something to consider. Okay. Yes. Can I show you how to add 401k contribution? Sure. You click into a 401k, go into the details tab and add the contribution. Okay. We don't separate out employee versus employer. So you got to come up with one annual number. And you got to find out what that number is, get it close and add it in there. In the notes section, you could leave a note and remind yourself, okay, he's contributing 12K. His employer is matching close to 4. That's why we called it 16 even. I always put it as of today because we don't care about the past. And then I will put whatever expected age I think they're going to retire. This all flows through into the target maps. Okay. Now coming back into this target map. Okay. So let's get back to the math. Tab number 1. You got to come up with $14 million to fund this retirement. That's assuming your money does nothing for you. Tab number 2, we do have income sources. We do have assets. We're dumping them in a bucket. And I believe that I can average a 5% rate of return. Okay. If I can average a 5% rate of return on your assets, well, then you're going to be looking in a much better position. Why? Because you only need to come up with $2.1 million today if your money continues to do something for you year after year after year. In fact, in the what it means tab, we're summarizing everything. You need 2.1 million to fund this. We have 1.9. That means we have a $174,000 deficit. So I could tell them, listen, you got to write me a check today for 174. We got to invest it, average a 5% rate of return. If we can do that, this gap will be filled. You'll be fine. If they can't do that, they don't have 174 of cash laying around, which a lot of people don't. Okay. Well, a lot of people, well, I should say a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't. Okay. What we can do is we can think about this duration of contributions. This box, the only place that it affects is it helps you take this deficit and or surplus and helps you calculate a monthly amount. Okay, so look, Neil is 41 years old today. I'm saying he's not going to retire until 67. So what is that? That's 26 years. So let's just call it 25. If I put 25 years in here, I say, listen, you've got 25 years before you're going to retire. If I put 25, it takes that 174, 472, and it calculates a monthly amount. And I could say, listen, if you can't write me this check today, Do you think you can start coming up with $1,000 a month? If you could do that every month for the next 25 years and we invest it an average of 5% rate of return, this gap is going to be filled. In fact, let's say each year you increase those savings, let's just say by 3%, this annual increase, the only place it affects is it helps you take this deficit and come up with a monthly amount. We're saying, listen, you got to write me a check for 174, or a lot of people miss this language. You see these little words, or, at, for, read it with me. If we average a 5% rate of return on your money, that leaves us with a deficit of 174. So you got to write me a check for 174 and I got to invest it at 5%. And if we could do that, you're going to be fine. Or you could start saving $733 a month at 3% increase of annual contributions, meaning that each year you would increase that 733 up, increase that contribution by 3%. And this would go on for the next 25 years up until you retire. And this might be more feasible. And they might say, well, I might actually be able to add that, start putting more money into my 401k. I could do that. Okay. Everything in Asset Map is annual. So you cannot add a monthly amount for the question that just came in. So hopefully that's helpful for the group. Okay. The reason I wanted to open this up and show you what these boxes are and what they mean is because when you come back out to this highest level and we reselect the ones that we want to compare and we go into that comparison mode, those are the same 3 boxes that you can adjust. Okay. So if we average a 5% rate of return on your money, okay, overall, as of today, we'd have a $375,000 deficit based off of the following assumptions. Okay. And because of that, if we think about the next, let's say, 24 years before you're going to retire, well, then that comes out to you having to come up with an additional $2,200 a month. Now, this is where in this view, I could switch this to 6% and I could show retiring at 65, but getting a 6% rate of return instead of 5%. You can see how that visually is very appealing to have those conversations. So I just want to show that to the group. You can play around with these numbers and have those meaningful conversations. Okay. If you click here again, you can click edit and or remove. If you click remove, all it does is it removes the target map from this comparison and it allows you to open up space to overlay another one if you prefer. Notice that if I go back to the highest level, I didn't delete that target map. They're all still right here. Now, I showed this example of them retiring at 67 at 5%. I also showed another example of them retiring at 67 at 6%. But this is my baseline where I'm showing them retire at 65 at 5%. If I wanted to, this is where I could very quickly just click clone and I could create a carbon copy of all that work that I've already done. You saw that in seconds. What I could then do is I could just click here into the settings option. All I do is switch this to 6%, change this name to be at 65, and I could say at 6%, 6% ROR. I click update. And in 2 seconds, I have another option here. This is you retiring at 65, getting 5. This is you retiring at 65, averaging 6. This is you retiring 2 years later at 5. This is you retiring 2 years later at 6. Okay. And then we might have to have that conversation about what some of those hard limits are. Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Now, if you're curious on terms of like how this all looks from a report format, all you got to do is come here into the report section. I always recommend when you're going to build a deliverable, do it here in the actual reports area. That's going to be the best place for you to do this. Specifically with target maps, when you first click into creating a report, the system default will have cover page turned on, which you have to have. The asset map report default, which is the map of where they are today. And usually it'll be pre-templated where target maps will be auto-selected on. You can see like in this example, I have a ton of target maps. So I also can pick and choose like which ones I'd like to include. So for example, if I wanted to isolate this to just be the retirement target maps, I could do that. You need to be comfortable with how these are named and how these are ordered. If you don't like how these are named and how these are ordered, you got to go back into the main target map section, drag and drop to change the order and change the names. How you leave this main target map section is how those target maps are going to flow through into your deliverable. So please be mindful of that. Okay. If you want to include the cash flow details report for target maps, you can. Okay. It's a cash flow details report per target map. But I might say, you know what, I'm okay with them seeing the cash flow details report for their baseline at 65 because that's fine. But anything else, they can ask me about it later. It's up to you. The only other report we automatically check on is the disclosure, which you have to have. And then when you're ready, you can come up to the top and you could click generate report. In a moment, that's going to take a second to download. Okay, it's going to generate for a couple seconds. Once it has successfully created the PDF, you can then download it onto your computer. I will open this up today so that you can see exactly what it's going to look like, so that you can be mindful of how you might want to utilize the deliverable moving forward. If I open this up, okay, you can see that I'm going to have my cover page. Okay, this will be your company logo. This will be the name of the household. So if you don't like the way that this name is, well, then you got to go in app and you better change the name of the household. Okay, be mindful that the household name will be how it flows through onto their client portal as well. So don't put, street contractor household or something like that. Like, be intentional, put their last name or their first name, etc. So the first page after the cover page will be the asset map report. You can see here, if you leave the emojis on, they will be on the printout. Okay, which for some of you, depending on your compliance teams and things, they may not like that. So I know some people, for example, that really like to just use the emojis behind the scenes. Okay, when they're adding data, a way for them to communicate with other members on their team, etc. But when they're getting ready to present anything, or make sure to remove them before building deliverables. Okay, so something to consider there. Next up will be a target map summary page. Now, the target map summary page in report format is going to be this current view, okay, which kind of looks the way that it looked previously, which I think is like really great. Again, naming criteria is going to be important, but what this first page does is it just summarizes. So as long as you have more than 2 target maps selected, there will be a target map summary page that will highlight the ones that are selected, and then we'll give you just like a general overview synopsis of what each of them are looking like. Then we move into the individual reports themselves. So again, naming criteria is going to be very important here. Okay, you'll be able to see the funding bar illustrated in green. It will remind you what percentage is cash, what percentage is assets, and if insurance was applicable. So all the information is still there. Scrolling down, if you included the cash flow details report, this would be the view. Okay, I only included one off of one of the target maps, because you can see that sometimes if there's several years left, it'll add several pages to your report. Next up is my second target map, them retiring at 65, getting 6% rate of return. After that is the retirement funding at 67, getting 5% rate of return. And then the final one was the retirement funding at 67, getting 6% rate of return. Okay. And then the final section is your disclosure statement. If you go to produce one of these deliverables and you don't see your company logo as it should be on the upper left-hand side, then that's where you got to check your team settings area. If you don't have team settings, that likely means that you are an enterprise client, and therefore it's likely your company logo that has been predetermined for you. Okay, if you have access to team settings, it would be in your main menu on the upper right under team settings. This area does flow through. So just make sure that you're being very conscious about anything you change there. In fact, if you're not sure of what to change or you have questions about that, I would just ask that you reach out before you do anything. Okay, you don't want to do something and then not be able to take it back. All right, so that's going to be the target map enhancements that I wanted to show you all today too. So again, to summarize, we've updated this target map summary page, right? We've added in the ability for you to see the funding bar breakdown always, so not hiding it any longer, always making that fully available to have those meaningful conversations. Again, we did adjust the funding percentage bar. So now we have it broken up by quarters. So again, anything 25% and under will be red, 25% but less than 50 will be orange, between 50% and 75% will be yellow, and anything above 75% will be green. Okay. And yeah, listen, at the end of the day, 21% in red isn't very exciting to see, but to be honest, if it's red for a reason. Either they're not going to be successful if something like that happens, or they haven't told you a lot of information about themselves. So if you don't want them to see this, then consider removing the target map altogether, or making sure that you're getting all the necessary information to make sure it's accurate. But at the end of the day, if someone's only 21% funded, we're just marking that in red. I understand, because I saw some feedback about how, some people may not like the red, or it would be nice if you could change the color. That is great feedback. And honestly, I would recommend that you please submit that. And again, you can do so through your main menu on the upper right, clicking feedback here. Now, as we kind of wrap up for the day, I do want to engage you all very quickly. And I would love to ask that you all please fill out this poll for me really quick. My question is, do you love Asset Map? And if the answer is yes, would you potentially be willing to leave a quick, honest review for me? If the answer is yes, I'm going to post a link in the chat here so that you can do it right away. Only should take you a minute or so to do. Or if you prefer to do like a video testimonial or something like that, I can reach out to you separately if you would prefer to do it that way. I'm going to post a link right now in the chat. If you wanted to leave us a written review, I would appreciate that greatly. But for those of you that did say that you'd be willing, it means a lot. Thank you for that. And those that said that you love us, but not at this time, I completely understand. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. Last couple things before we wrap up today. Okay. And actually, let me go back a page here for just a moment. Before we wrap up today, one of the things that I wanted to share with you all is that we do have some wonderful events that we often host throughout the year outside of the Accelerate series webinars that we host. If you ever want to schedule a one-on-one or go through a case review, please know that that is something that you can do with our team. All you have to do is just reach out and let us know that you are interested in wanting to book a one-on-one, and our team will we'll be able to give you a calendar scheduler link so that you can do that and book time with us. So let's go ahead and continue on. So one thing I want you to think about is attending future Accelerate series webinars that we'll be hosting in the future. If you wanted to find any of the ones that we did in the past, sorry, I was trying to open this to show the group. If you come back in app, all you got to do is click the chat bubble right here. That's the easiest way to open up our support options. You can live chat questions to our team, email our team, but also we have the knowledge base, which is available 24/7. If you click search for help, all you have to do is type in Accelerate like this. Okay, type in Accelerate, and there's going to be a link to webinar. So if you click on that here, it'll just open up this article and you can come into the Accelerate series link here, and it'll take you to all of the past ones that I've hosted over the time. Okay, I often will recover subjects as the years go on because we're always making enhancements and things. Also, if you have any ideas of content or topics that you'd like for me to cover, listen, I'm all ears. So make sure that you chat that in if you have any interest. Let me go ahead and exit out of that poll. Okay. So in addition to the Accelerate series webinars, for those of you that have any interest, we also are hosting an incredible event. We only offer once a quarter. And our next one's coming up in August. It's going to be August 6th through 8th. That's a Tuesday through Thursday. It's our Asset Map virtual bootcamp. Now, I want to be clear, we offer tons of complimentary training that come within your subscription. Okay, so there's tons. There's no lack of support and or options for you. You can schedule as many one-on-ones as you want with folks from our team. You have access to live chat, email, phone support. You can check out all the webinars that we host complimentary for the group as well. But we do have some additional options where there might be like a small fee associated with it, like, for example, our virtual bootcamp. The reason for this is that it's a 3-day event. It's a half-day event. So there's a ton of time commitment from members on our team, like myself, our senior onboarding manager, Sean Dodds, and also our CEO and founder, Adam Holt, takes part in Bootcamp 201, which is day 2 and day 3. It's a little bit more advanced. If you want to learn more about Bootcamp, I'll post a link in the chat. Ultimately, you can come to this page to learn more. We got this great little video you can watch to learn all about it. Oops, there's me. That always makes me feel uncomfortable seeing my face like that. But you can learn more about the event. You can sign up for just day 1, which would be our Bootcamp 101 session, or you could sign up for just our 201, which is day 2 or day 3, or combo, which is all 3 days. Because you all are likely brand new or have been on our platform for quite some time, as many of you I know continue to come to my sessions, and we've been doing this for years together, I am going to give you all a special discount today for 40% off. We are doing early bird pricing right now for, I think it's like 25 or 35% off, but I wanted to give you all a little bit of a bigger discount. So that will be valid for the next like week or so. I believe it expires next Friday at midnight. So if you or someone from your team, you want to come, the great thing is that it's a virtual event, so you can join from the comfort of your office or your home. You don't have to be on camera. You can stay off and just really take in the information, but there is opportunities to obviously chat in questions, come off of mute, interact, really get a lot out of the session. And we do record them, and we make the sessions available for 30 days post event. So you can watch back sections that you really, really like. Other than that, that is going to be all that I have for us today. So if you have any final questions, now would be a good time to add them into the chat. and I will go ahead and stop today's recording, and I'll get any of those final questions answered. For those of you that have to jump, thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you at the next one. And as always, happy learning, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.